Hey, ex-con twin mom, checking in. Um, I really have just wanted to lay this out there because this is like the first moment I have gotten where um, my house is empty. Well, I have one baby sleeping, I have another one playing in the other room, and I have literally not had a chance to myself to be able to reach out. And this YouTube channel is a sounding board for me, and it's also a video journal for my babies when y'all get older. So I just wanted to let you guys know that when this all first started out, my life, I never planned on growing up and becoming a drug addict or growing up and becoming an ex-con. Like, that wasn't my original plan. Like, I always wanted to help people. I wanted to be a marine biologist. I wanted to work with dolphins, and I had dreams and things that I wanted to do, and it has nothing to do with my family. It has nothing to do with where I grew up. Drugs does not discriminate. It can affect somebody who grew up in a $1 million mansion, or somebody who grew up in the suburbs, or somebody who grew up in the hood. It doesn't matter. And I was watching National Geographic the other night, and it's like some Shark Week, and every person who got attacked by a shark, they said, we always knew the sharks were out there, we just never expected for me to be the one to be attacked. And that's the same thing with me. In high school, I'm sure it really hasn't changed much, except for everything is so much more chemically induced at this point. Like, who knows what people are putting in drugs now. But it was all recreation to start, It was drinking beers and smoking weed and experimenting and hanging out with friends. And I just never expected the shark of addiction to attack me. And when it did, everything went out the window. And it was all based upon influence. And I never lied to my family, and I was raised like really well. And the second I lied and got away with it, and I knew I could get away with it, it was sunk. Because I always had the trust of my mom, who I was very close to. And when you have somebody who trusts you and you lie to them and they believe you because they trust you, lying becomes easy. And that's where it all began. It all began with the lying, and you mix lying with bad influences, and it is just a recipe for disaster. I went through tragedies very early on in age. I had my boyfriend, even before I started doing drugs on a serious level. Like, my boyfriend I was with overdosed and almost died, and next to me, and the doctors told him, if you ever mess with drugs again, like, you're gonna die. And the only thing that kept him alive was because he was so healthy. And months later, he ends up doing drugs again, and he dies in my bed. And my mom was away, and I had permission to like let him stay over, and I never expected that to happen. And for somebody to be 19, 20 years old and their boyfriend's like stuck around them and rigor mortis is kicked in and they're dead in your bed and you're covered in shit, like, that's enough to send a kid like into a crazy spiral. And like, I didn't even start doing drugs then. And I was offered so much support from my family and everything, and I didn't take any of it. Like, I knew it was out there, but for some reason, like, maybe it was my pride or what, but I thought that if I could just look strong for his friends, that if they seen me strong, then they would be strong. And so I think from that time, that's when I took on the whole caretaking role in my life, which played a huge influence on me starting to sell drugs. Because caretaking in any avenue, whether it's legal or illegal, it's that feeling of being needed. And also, if you have a poor self-esteem, you know, to feel like you're needed helps with your self-esteem when you're sick. And because I had no healing and I wouldn't accept any help, and my mom, and I'll never forget, you know, my sister and I, we didn't grow up getting along because all I ever did was steal her clothes. And I just wanted to be her growing up, and I wanted to hang out with her friends. And my sister worked her ass off, you know, in school, and my brother worked his ass off too. And like, I wanted the same outcome, but I wanted to cut all that hard work out. And it obviously didn't work that way. You never ever see a drug dealer retired, you know what I mean? Or a drug addict retired. So I just remember that, you know, my sister, we didn't get along. My sister in the kitchen one day, right before his funeral, she hugged me, and she didn't have to say anything, but it was that one time my sister reached out to me and gave me a necklace and hugged me, and like letting me know that she was there for me. And like, I'll never forget that hug in that kitchen that day, because I had so many people reaching for me, and I just turned my backs on them, and I thought I could do it myself. And so I just turned inside out. And then months later, we considered the town freak, because stuff like this, like shark attacks, it doesn't happen to people like me. Or, you know, my boyfriend dying in my bed, that doesn't happen in my town. Like, and so I became like a freak, and it really affected me, and I just became an introvert. And I had the opportunity, and the opportunity suited, and I guess I just took peak interest in the kind of life that my boyfriend who had died, what he was living that I had no idea about. And so I started selling them and hanging out with the people who did them, and then I eventually started doing them. And one thing led to another, and one turned to 3, turned to 5, turned to 10, turned to hundreds and thousands, and which turned to conspiracy, which ultimately I'm a victim of my own crime, because I was literally fueled by my own addiction to keep going, and which led to a federal indictment, and ultimately led me to years and years in prison. And don't get me wrong, along the way, being under the influence, I did things that I literally think back on, and like the stores that I've stolen from, the thievery. I wasn't raised like that. Like, I don't even have the guts to steal anything. Like, I mean, I would walk into stores and take what I was so entitled, and I thought I was so invisible. I've broken into my own family's house. I've stolen from my family. I've stolen from, literally, at one point, I was that person who would take your wallet and help you look for it. And then there was other times where I had so much money that I would pay all your bills, my bills, and take you out to dinner, your whole family out to dinner, and rent y'all a freaking hotel in Florida for a week, you know? And just throw money like Biggie Smalls. But it's crazy, like the chapters that I've gone through. And you know what? It ultimately all led me in prison. It led me to a needle in my arm. It led me to getting raped, and then calling the same man that raped me because I needed to pick up more drugs to sell, and he was the only connect. It led me to doing things that I said that I never do. Said I never put a needle in my arm. I used to judge people who did that, and it brought me to my knees in a month. I put a needle in my arm for a month, and it literally brought me to my knees. So I don't know how people last for years sticking needles in their arm, like using intravenous drugs, because I mean, I always just used pills, and I never would mess with hard street drugs like that. I always considered myself a white collar drug user because at least I knew what was in the drugs that I was using. But to tell you the truth, nowadays, it's scary out there. People, I'm reading all the time that like people are getting pill presses and they're making fentanyl pills and calling them perks, and it's scary, you guys. Like, it's not how it used to be. And like, and I'm scared for my kids, and I'm just hoping that I can instill in them that communication and being honest is so important, because I know exactly where I went wrong. Like, it is not my mom's fault. It is nobody's fault but my own. And like, I pushed the envelope one day and I tested that lie, and the second I lied, it was all downhill. And like, you know, that's like the Cliff Notes of like how everything started. But you know what? Like, there is a happy ending to it. And like, you know, all of the different black holes that I've been to, that nobody could help me. They offered. I went to a whole bunch of programs. I, you know, been arrested, but for some reason, every time I went to court, they gave me chance after chance after chance, because I'd show up looking like a normal, like, girl who's just like, who had the bad boyfriend, or it's not my fault, like, never taking responsibility. And so I always got a free pass, and my free passes ran out. And when the federal indictment came around, my record was so high that there was no way out of it. And like, out of all the bottoms I hit was that helpless feeling of that I can't talk myself out of this, I can't buy myself out of this, my mom can't help me out of this, nobody can help me out of this. I'm going to prison. I just realized I lost an earring. I'm going to prison, and there's nothing anybody can do about it. And that was the whole bottom. And guess what? Even when I was on pretrial, I still used and tried, because addiction, like, it stays outside your door. And like, I know we hear those cliches about, you know, addiction's just doing push-ups outside your door and it's just waiting and this and that, but there's truth behind it, you guys. And like, even on pretrial, knowing that I could go to prison any day, and they let me stay out on pretrial, like, I still used. I mean, I stopped. I went to treatment. Then I was almost a year clean when I went to prison, but I still went to prison. And you know, and I started off in a tough Mac State prison, and that was a really hard time for me. And I did 2 years there, and then I went to Danbury for 2 years, where orange is the new black, and then I finished out my other 2 years at Bryan in Texas, and like, that's what brought me here. And like, there's so much in between, but like, I wanted to share like my beginning. And I consider myself a success story, considering where I came from. And I make mistakes today, and I'm not perfect in any way, but you know what? Every single day that I have clean is still better than my best day high. Because you know what? Any day in the past that I used to get high, I used to have to always worry about the next day. And like, the freedom of not having to worry about the next day, that I can wake up tomorrow and still feel as good as I feel today without a substance, is the most amazing feeling ever. And like, yeah, I have all the feelings that everybody in the world experiences. And like, being an addict in recovery, like, I still, I'm not gonna lie, I think about using. Would I ever use? No. Would never consider it. But will I be an addict for the rest of my life? Absolutely. Am I ashamed of it? No. Because just like being in the ocean, you know, addiction got to me. I didn't have it in my family. It's not hereditary, like, but it got to me. And I let it take control of my entire life. But you know what? I made it out. And you can't do it for the courts. You can't do it for parole. You can't do it for probation. You can only do it for you. So I help a lot of girls from home still. and I am starting to do some service work out here and to help some girls who are getting like fresh out of prison, to help them and let them know like how to take the one day at a time and to slow down, and like we're not perfect. We just have an additional issue. And as long as we don't let that thought turn into an action, we're going to be okay. Because we can live being addicts. As long as you don't take that mental obsession, or you don't take that craving to use drugs and turn it into an action, that craving legitimately will only last 2 or 3 minutes. And then you're good. Because honestly, it's not worth it. I lost so many years of my life. And some of the best years I had were like the last couple of years that I had in prison. That's when I found myself. But I would never, ever wish what I've been through on my worst enemy, because it is a loneliness that nobody should ever have to endure. And so if you're a mom, or if you're a kid, or if you are struggling with addiction, or maybe you know me, or I went to school with your sister or your brother or anything, I'm telling you right now, if you're partying and you're hanging out in high school and you think that it's recreational and that it's cool and that everything's going to be fine, but you're finding yourself more and more partying, like you may not necessarily have traumas or issues in your life that you're drinking to drown, but those things stack up in your head like pieces of paper. And the second you use, it's like somebody takes a fan to that paper and blows it away. But guess what? As you're coming down from that high, those issues, they restack and they stay. So when you drink or you do drugs or anything, that's what started with me. When I started using, it wasn't because I was thinking about my boyfriend died or this or that. It was a good day and I just decided to try it. But the euphoric feeling, I liked. And so I kept doing it. And so I warn you that if you take that route, there's no turning back. And you don't know if you're going to be the one that's going to be affected by the shark, because I never thought I'd be bitten by that shark. And you know what? Luckily, all I have are some scars. I didn't lose my life. I didn't lose my limbs. And now I have a beautiful life. I don't need for anything. Of course, I have lots of things that I want. Life is hard. It's challenging. It's stressful. It's sad. It's exciting. It's happy. But it's free. And nothing compares to it. And like, I used to be ashamed of where I came from. And now it's my platform. It's who I am. My husband came from, he has his own story, but you know what? He shares that loneliness that I had. And now we have beautiful children, and I have beautiful stepchildren, and like, all I can do is just be positive reinforcement in their life and pay attention to the signs and give as much information as I can, because honestly, sometimes people have to find out for themselves, because if you have somebody in your family or a friend that's struggling with addiction, don't break your back trying to help them, because they can only help themselves. And like for me, I had to hit my own rock bottom in order to help myself, and that was literally not being raped, not putting a needle in my arm. My rock bottom moment was when they told me, you're going to prison and for a long time, and there is absolutely nothing you can do about it. That helpless feeling, and that's my bottom. Everybody has their own. So if you're at a bad time right now and you're feeling like a victim, trust me, it can get a lot worse. My aunt told me one time, if you take your problems and stood around everybody on this planet and threw your problems into a circle, 99% of people would take back their own problems, because you never know what the person next to you is going through. So whatever issues you have going on right now, talk to somebody about it and reach out about it. You can even reach out to me if you want. I've been through it all. And I'm still here. And I'm blessed. And like, I got baby throw up on my shirt. I had baby poop on my arm today when I went to the dentist for the babies. I'm about to dye my hair. I'm in debt. But you know what? It's cool. Like, this is what life. I used to lay in my cell and like daydream about being stuck in traffic. Or like daydream about when it's raining, having the ability to just go outside and feel the rain. Because there is nothing worse than sitting in a cement wall with a tiny window looking at it pouring rain and not being able to touch those raindrops. Like, I know it sounds stupid, but it's crazy, the little things. So, I mean, it's 20 minutes, so sorry if I kept you guys on here that long. Not sure if it's that interesting, but I wanted to finally get that out there a little, like, where it all began. And I'm going to be sharing in the future more stuff, some journal entries and stuff of things that I went through, because I kept a journal the entire time to my babies. And so I'm going to start reading that journal to them, because I thought my life was going to be completely different. I didn't expect it. Life has so many twists and turns, and it's funny, like, that, like, what did they used to say in AA or NA, like, tell God your plans and he'll laugh at you, or something like that. Because, like, honestly, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So you got to take every day like it's your last. And I just feel extremely blessed. And I'm not going to lie, I complain a lot and I bitch and whine a lot. But I am completely blessed. I have a beautiful family. I have a beautiful, like, in-law family. I have beautiful children, stepchildren. I got a dog that gets arrested on a daily basis for, you know, all sorts of destruction of property. But I'm making it. My parole officer is super proud of me, because and Pedro, because we're making it. And I'm getting, like, interviewed next week by some lady who's flying in on recidivism, and I don't really know, but he chose me out of everybody. And that feels really good. So I'm going to let you guys go for now, because I need to go and dye my hair, because it's not looking too good. I put self-tanner on my face, and so I feel like I look like I am coming from a character of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. But other than that, that's about it for today. So I hope y'all have a wonderful and blessed evening, and I will hit you guys up soon. All right? Peace.